The OSCE Minsk Group, once central to international efforts to resolve the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict, is now seen by many as a relic of the past. Established in the early 1990s, the group was meant to facilitate peace, but after nearly 3 decades of stagnation, it's become clear that its mission has not only stalled, it may have done more to preserve the status quo than resolve the conflict. Now the winds of change are blowing across the South Caucasus. In recent months, Armenia has begun signaling a willingness to follow a new path, one that moves away from third-party mediation and toward direct engagement with Azerbaijan. This shift aligns with Baku's long-standing position that peace must be achieved through bilateral dialogue, without external manipulation. That shift was underscored during a high-profile visit to Yerevan by Feridun Sinirlioglu, a seasoned Turkish diplomat currently serving as the OSCE Secretary General. He met with Armenia's Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan to discuss key issues, the evolving peace talks with Azerbaijan, and the parallel efforts to normalize relations between Armenia and Turkey. It is noteworthy to add that Secretary General is expected to visit Azerbaijan on Friday. Following that meeting, Minister Mirzoyan emphasized that finalizing a peace agreement with Azerbaijan is a crucial step toward long-term regional stability, but not everything coming from Yerevan sounds consistent. In a recent speech in Parliament, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan offered conflicting messages. On the one hand, he assured that there would be no new war and reiterated Armenia's recognition of Azerbaijan's territorial integrity. Yet in the same breath, he warned that certain actors, both within Armenia and abroad, are pushing for escalation. Is Yerevan still trying to delay the dismantling of the OSCE Minsk Group, fearing the final loss of a diplomatic crutch? Or is it simply struggling to balance conflicting pressures from its domestic opposition, diaspora, and foreign sponsors? In an effort to assess the true direction of the peace process, Azer News spoke to 2 renowned experts. British political analyst Neil Watson provided a critical assessment of the OSCE Minsk Group. He noted that the group's co-chairs, Russia, France, and the United States, have never truly acted as neutral mediators. According to Watson, Russia's aggression in Ukraine, France's increasing alignment with Armenia, and the U.S.'s inward-focused posture under President Trump have collectively rendered the Minsk Group irrelevant.
Well, I'm speaking at a pivotal time in the achievement of stability and normalisation in the South Caucasus and wider region. And obviously the most important component of that is the achievement of a peace treaty between Azerbaijan and Armenia. This has been rumbling on for far, far too long. And interwoven with that is the normalisation between Turkey and Armenia as well. So we would see the region operating as a homogeneous entity for the first time in many generations. Now, part of the Baku peace plan, of course, is the dissolution of the OSCE Minsk Group. This was the beleaguered organisation that allegedly attempted to forge a negotiated peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia for 28 years, if memory serves me correctly. And now this is of complete irrelevance. We've always known that the 3 co-chairs of Russia, France, and the United States have been very much weighted towards the Armenian side. But now that Russia is an aggressor, with the Ukraine issue, and also France has very much stood behind Armenia and has even offered armed support for Armenia, and the United States is backing out of many parts of international politics at the moment with the protectionist regime under President Trump. The Minsk Group is even more an on.
He also touched on Prime Minister Pashinyan's conflicting statements. Watson suggested that this is not necessarily a sign of duplicity, but of political juggling. Pashinyan faces enormous pressure from all sides: war veterans, diaspora groups, political opponents, and the public. And while his rhetoric may shift depending on the audience, Watson believes the underlying goal remains constant: to secure a sustainable peace.
Prime Minister Pashinyan of Armenia has identified the fact that the involvement of third parties in the peace process is actually detrimental to the achievement of true independence for Armenia, which indeed it's never really had, having always been under the aegis of Russia and being very close to Russia in many ways, regarding its economy, its infrastructure, and so forth, particularly with the borders closed for nearly 30 years between Armenia and two of its neighbours, Azerbaijan and Turkey. So we are seeing a recognition there that by Pashinyan that something needs to change, and it needs to change very, very soon. And that is the reason why Firudin Sinaroglu, the UN Secretary General, did visit Armenia last week. He is obviously a Turkish diplomat. He's now in this pivotal role. And one of the things, of course, they touched on was the ongoing Azerbaijani-Armenian peace process, the attainment of a peace treaty, but also normalisation between Turkey and Armenia for the first time. And I think the fact that there is the issue with Russia at the moment, and certainly regarding Russian energy and connections with Russia, I think that it means that the South Caucasus and the Turkic region, the Turkic world as a whole, are becoming even more important, a more important force across Europe, and Armenia obviously needs to be part of this rather than distancing itself from it. So I think that we are seeing, all the time with Prime Minister Pashinyan, we are seeing him saying slightly different things to different audiences. And sometimes his statements could be misread as actually saying that he believes there's going to be further attempts by Azerbaijan to launch war on Armenia. The fact is that we all know that the last war was a result of Armenian provocation. And the fact is, I am very much aware that Prime Minister Pashinyan himself is really seeking peace. He realises that peace can only be good for his people and be good for the region, and it will actually enable his country to achieve its independence for the first time. So my view is that nothing really has changed, that we will achieve an Azerbaijani-Armenian peace. It would be a bilaterally organised peace with Turkey very much in the background of Azerbaijan at all the time, at Azerbaijan's shoulder all the time, supporting it throughout. And I believe that in the future, when we step away from the propaganda, and certainly propaganda that's coming out of third countries, and propaganda that's coming out of the Armenian diaspora and so forth, then we are actually going to see the negotiated peace take place. Prime Minister Pashinyan is not a trained politician. He is a journalist. He says slightly different things to different people, different audiences. He's trying to placate the Armenian population who want peace. He's also trying to placate the Armenian veterans from the two Karabakh wars. And also he's trying to placate the Armenian diaspora, who've been very staunchly behind the occupation of Azerbaijani territories for nearly 30 years. He's got an impossible job to do, but I think that despite the fact we see some of his rhetoric vacillating, the mentality is there. He realises that peace, a bilateral peace, a peace that's going to last, a peace that's going to be fundamentally acceptable to all sides, is the only way forward for his country, and nothing is going to take us off that agenda. My only hope is it will happen sooner rather than later, and that the world is going to assist Azerbaijan and Armenia as they seek to achieve peace, and that no third parties are going to take advantage or try to take advantage of the situation and actually either extend the negotiation process or indeed impede it in any way.
Former U.S. Ambassador to Azerbaijan, Matthew Bryza, also shared his thoughts. He emphasized that both Pashinyan and President Ilham Aliyev are genuinely committed to finalizing a peace treaty, but the path forward is not without obstacles. Within Armenia's political landscape, there are factions that benefit, both politically and economically, from ongoing tension. These groups resist change, preferring conflict over compromise.
It's my assessment that Prime Minister Pashinyan of Armenia, like President Aliyev of Azerbaijan, is committed to finalizing a peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And when Prime Minister Pashinyan warns about people who are opposed to a peace treaty, I don't think he's accusing Azerbaijan of planning to attack Armenia. I think what he's saying is the truth. He's being sincere and underscoring that there are people in the political system of Armenia who do not want to accept peace yet, and who profit from the conflict with Azerbaijan continuing. They profit politically and they profit militarily. And he, Pashinyan, needs to overcome and wants to overcome that opposition and finalize a peace treaty with Azerbaijan. And I would assume there are some people, like in any conflict on the Azerbaijani side, who would prefer to keep pushing and resume the fight to gain even more. But they're in a very small minority in Azerbaijan. But I think, Pashinyan is warning in the context of his own political system that there may be people like that in Azerbaijan. For us, for Armenia, it's much better to have peace. And so let's make the peace and not give in to those in the Armenian political system who prefer conflict.
Both experts agree on a crucial point. The time for mediated negotiations is over. The Minsk Group has outlived its purpose. True peace, they argue, will only come through direct, bilateral dialogue, with no room for manipulation from external actors who may have their own agendas. Today, the opportunity for peace is real, but it requires courage, consistency, and a willingness to let go of the narratives of the past. The South Caucasus is at a crossroads, and the choices made now will shape the region for generations to come. Stay with us for more expert insights and in-depth analysis, only here on Azer News.